When an $867 billion firm drops a new report on Bitcoin, I pay attention, and you probably should too. Look, there's going to be a lot of interesting angles that we will dive into today, but one of them, and the main one for today's show, is suggesting that we might be seeing Bitcoin bottom out already, or rather, it might be currently bottoming, and we could have seen the worst behind us, which is what I've been kind of saying. Obviously, I could be wrong here, but the reason for this prediction, the reason for this report, this analysis is really based on Bitcoin treasuries, like Michael Saylor basically buying all of the Bitcoin. Now, the craziest part about this report is they didn't even factor in the fact that Michael Saylor just made a huge announcement that he's going to buy $44 billion of Bitcoin, or I think it's really closer to $42 billion of Bitcoin. So this is just their overview of Bitcoin treasuries as they were before yesterday. And of course, we covered that on yesterday's show. Well, Bernstein, the firm I'm talking about, isn't the only firm getting bullish. We also have another research firm, K33, saying the same thing. So the question for you, the question for me today is really, does Wall Street know something about Bitcoin that we don't? Do they have some inside baseball? Do they have some intel that isn't privy to the public consciousness yet? That's been the conversation we've been having for a while, whether it's Saylor, whether it's the politicians, whether it's these Wall Street firms. And there is a bit of a paper trail to back up what potentially is coming down the pipeline. So enough of that. Enough of me, grandstanding here. Let's get into this. This is, and I did find the original report, but it's all behind a paywall, and I can't actually show you that because the only way I could get it's through archive, and I can't do that on YouTube. Okay. So we're going to have to take Bitcoin Magazine's word for this, but it's the same. I did verify this. Anyways, the headline is Bernstein Alliance, again, $867 billion firm. It is a Wall Street firm, is predicting that Bitcoin already bottomed. And they are maintaining their 150K target by end of year. So for my boy in the chat, Senor Gringo, I believe it's you that always asks, when 150K? I think end of year at minimum, okay? We're going to lock it in. And they're really emphasizing MicroStrategy because of how much Bitcoin they hold. And again, like I said, they didn't factor in the fact that, as we heard yesterday, Saylor is going to raise $42 billion, potentially buying another 600, 500, 400,000 coins, essentially getting to 1.3 million, or at the very minimum, 1 million coins by the end of the year, potentially within the next 3 months, which is just going to be absolutely insane. So Bernstein, a Wall Street broker, believes Bitcoin has probably reached its bottom and maintains a 150K target for the end of the year. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of give you, the play-by-play here. Again, of course, reaffirming 150K by end of year. Obviously, the main indicator here is strong ETF inflows and then growing corporate treasury demand support, a rebound. If you're looking at the chart, it is looking a little healthy. I know the 4-year cycle theory still in play. We're all waiting for a final capitulation moment. But I'm not the only one saying this. We have multiple people, multiple analysts, I would say smarter than me, saying, hey, we're seeing a lot of things that usually, historically, not just in Bitcoin, but in traditional markets, is lining up with a bottom forming. So analysts led by Gautam Chugani, highlighted that strategy, a high beta proxy for Bitcoin, remains resilient, now holding roughly 3.6% of total Bitcoin supply, valued at around $53.5 billion, which, of course, when they raise this money, they can get close to 7% of total supply and roughly $100 billion of Bitcoin on their corporate balance sheet. So they're using the standard what Saylor and strategy has done to this day and not really factoring in the fact that he might double those holdings. So this could be an underestimation of where we're going, but hey, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I actually saw a good comment in the chat, and you guys probably don't care, but someone said something on the lines of, I need Opti's optimism and I need Nico's grounding. So I'm here giving you the bull sauce. Nico is next to me. I'm sure he's going to bring me back down to reality. But anyways, it goes on. The firm has continued adding to its holdings. Obviously, they're using old numbers here, 7.3 billion. This is what has happened. Coming down the pipeline very soon, it's going to be as high as 42. Actually, if you add this, it's as high as 50 billion. Literally, the amount of Bitcoin that they hold, they're about to buy within the next couple of months. It's nuts. Anyways, they also noted, of course, rising interest in strategy stretch, which we've been covering. It's really, I think that iPhone moment meme has really caught on with the idea of stretch, but not necessarily for Bitcoin at large, but just for micro strategy. Saylor has had his iPhone moment with stretch. The interest, the capital that is coming into this product, it's almost unbeatable at this point, and there's companies trying to beat it. I don't know if you guys saw, but OpenAI is doing their own kind of, it's not digital credit, but it's like a private credit where they're guaranteeing 17.5 returns. What's Nico got here?
All right.
I didn't even get to the rest of it. We're already getting bearish.
We're not getting bearish, bro.
Let me get this out before you rain on our parade.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So it ends with, despite Bitcoin's pullback from late 2025 highs, the broker characterized the correction as a temporary reset in sentiment rather than a breakdown in fundamentals, with institutional flows and ETF demand pointing to further upside. Look, I like bullish sauce as probably more than anyone. And again, I have been mentioning the TA meme. You know, Nico's watching the antelope documentary. I'm watching the lion documentary here. So Nico's got the bearish perspective, which you're going to hear soon. Or rather, we'll do balanced perspective. I'll give you the hopium. Nico will give us the balanced perspective. Anyways, going further. Again, like I said in the beginning, it wasn't the only firm saying this. This is not the, if this was one analyst saying this, then it probably would be, you know, some slop. It'd be some noise. But we have multiple people saying this, multiple analysts that I would presume are not sharing the same information with each other so that they get the same reports to come out. I'm guessing that these both happen, you know, objectively in parallel, not working together. That's my guess. I don't really know, but that's what I would probably just, you know, logically think is happening. Two different firms coming to the same conclusion. Personally, when I hear multiple people coming to similar conclusions as I, doing their own analysis, I'm like, okay, hey, you confirmed my bias. I'm totally on board with this. So anyways, we saw this morning, Bitcoin Mag tweeted, K33 Research reports that Bitcoin may have found a market bottom and now is attractively priced for long-term investors. So, you know what you got to do on Twitter. I went to find this report. I had to fact check this. You got to fact check stuff because of how Twitter is right now. There is a lot of engagement farming. So you see a lot of clickbait tweets. You got to verify them. So I went and verified them. I went to K33, and the closest I found was a recent report that came out about a week ago or 2 weeks ago now, and it's titled 20 million Bitcoins. So this is a tad old, but it is saying basically the exact same thing. Bitcoin holds near 70K after a strong week despite the war in Iran. Bearish positioning, persistently negative funding, and low CME engagement point to defensive sentiment, but also an attractive risk-reward setup for Bitcoin, which is what we've been saying. This is the least risky time to be buying Bitcoin. Whatever you think is going to happen this year or within the next couple of months, Bitcoin, in our opinion, as people that have been in Bitcoin for a long time, I think it's almost, I wouldn't say completely de-risked, but the risk analysis that we used to have on Bitcoin, at least from an institutional perspective, I think is totally out the window. Things are shifting very fast. I wouldn't say Bitcoin is going to be completely de-risked, but we're starting to see that the riskiness, quote unquote, from Main Street institutional sentiment is starting to go away because of what we're seeing come out of Washington, D.C. and the Trump administration. And of course, the big news, the SEC and the CFTC. So again, this is behind a paywall, but we'll get a little nugget in here, and I'll make my case of what they're saying and how the data is backing it up. So we got market indicators still point to cautious positioning. Funding rates remain negative. Options data shows continued demand for downside hedging, which is what we've been kind of talking about on the show. And CME participants suggest institutional investors remain defensive. These conditions, though, often seen near broader market bottoms, indicate under-allocation and bearish sentiment, which could support further upside for Bitcoin from current levels. 60K, 70K. We're starting to see the institutional demand come in. We're starting to see Sailor FOMO into this at levels we haven't seen in a while, literally doubling his whole holdings. We're starting to see ETF inflows go crazy. Glassnode followed this up this morning, or rather, this was last night or yesterday, sorry. And they're doing their analysis, on-chain analysis of what is happening in the market, and they go awaiting liquidity. Bitcoin is stabilized around 70K with ETF flowing and sell-side pressure easing, which is also what we've been kind of wondering, like who is selling Bitcoin right now? Who even has Bitcoin to sell right now after the 1010 crash and the other crash in November? It doesn't seem like anyone has Bitcoin to sell. It seems like the buying is starting to pick up. Most of the uncertainty that we're seeing is because of all the chaos in the Middle East. Add to that, we are seeing a liquidity crisis in traditional financial markets, which is starting to show maybe people are trying to go a little further on the risk curve, though I did see a chart, and I haven't brought it up on the show, but retail sentiment right now is essentially they're in the least risky positions that they think and they imagine to be, which is, of course, they're going into cash. So retail capital is sitting on the sidelines right now trying to make sense of the fog of war that we are currently in. So once all that capital does find its position, or rather seems like there are some signals where they can deploy capital, it's as Glassnode said, we are awaiting liquidity. So, however, muted spot volume and overhead supply suggest stronger demand is still needed to turn this into a recovery. So you take all these together, they are kind of all saying the same thing. Really, no one's selling. We're kind of just waiting for some new demand to come in. Maybe it's a new retail FOMO wave. Maybe it's the regulatory clarity. Maybe it's the Clarity Act. And we are hearing some rumors that we might get some clarity on the Clarity Act today. Seems like the stablecoin yield compromise might have happened, though there still is some split and I think some debate to have. But as you can tell, a lot of liquidity, a lot of capital. You know, someone asked me yesterday, what do you mean by capital? We just mean money or wealth sitting on the sidelines or in people's portfolios, just capital in general. It's sitting on the sidelines waiting to position themselves because, look, let's all be honest. If you're watching Trump's tweets and what's happening in the Middle East, I don't think any of us can really say we know exactly what's happening. There is, two contending views right now. One is essentially Trump's bluffing and lying and nothing's been resolved in the Middle East. And then you have kind of the more, tinfoil hat view where it's like, oh no, there's backroom deals, there's compromises happening in real time. Just give it a week or two and everything will be a lot clearer. I think if you just kind of hold these two opinions, somewhere in the middle is probably more of the truth. But anyways, I told you I got some more data. We're going to show you some of the data here. And I'm going to start with a clip that was on Bloomberg from Eric Balchunas, of course, the senior ETF analyst. And he did a crazy post yesterday just showing the inflows, the amount of interest in Bitcoin from institutions going into ETFs. You could call it paper Bitcoin if you want. But it is a new ball game. We're not in the same market we were last year where gold was absolutely ripping and Bitcoin didn't do anything. It's almost like the roles have reversed. So this is a short clip, and then I got a couple of tweets for you.
This is interesting. Both of the big gold ETFs seeing outflows. A lot of people were kind of dumping on Bitcoin for not being the safe haven store of value about 2 or 3 months ago, and gold was. Well, the roles have been reversed. I think you shouldn't really judge these assets over a couple weeks or months anyway. So I think both are store values. One's just a little more sturdy, one's a little younger, but you know, they work in different ways. They're more like zero correlated, not inverse.
Interesting change. Usually we've heard, hey, gold and Bitcoin have this inverse correlation. Currently, they're kind of acting in whatever way they both want to act. They're kind of autonomous. Maybe Bitcoin being 17 now is growing up and he's like in his rebellious teen stage and he's like, I don't care what my big uncle Gold's doing. Like, F him. I'm going to do my own thing right now. That's kind of, you know, if you want to put a what's it when you put human attributes on something that isn't alive? Whatever, you know what I'm saying.
Personification.
Is it personification? I think it's another word. But anyway, you get the point. Whatever, who cares? Anyways, to back up that claim, Eric Balchunas tweeted this about how strong the ETF inflows are right now for Bitcoin compared to the broader market. And it is painting a pretty interesting picture, to say the least. Now, I know some of you guys in the chat and even us here on this side of the camera, we're not the biggest Bitcoin ETF fans. But again, this is a new interest in Bitcoin that we haven't had before. And Eric Balchunas goes, so here we see at the bottom, U.S. spot Bitcoin ETF has strong inflows yesterday. Obviously, Strategy said they're going to buy $42 billion of Bitcoin. We have a new Morgan Stanley Bitcoin ETF coming soon. And we're under, 100K right now. It's like, it just, but so much good news. And yet Bitcoin just isn't doing anything. It's really a different time in Bitcoin in the past. Nico, remember any amount of literally the slightest amount of good news, so the price pump. But hold on, let me get this tweet and then I'll let you rip, Nico. Say Nick.
Doxing my non-Bitcoin
No. I meant to say Nico. That was totally not what I meant to do. Anyways, it goes. Yeah, Bitcoin ETFs are now $2.5 billion for a month and one good day away from completely digging out of their year-to-date flow hole. I bet is already there and then some. And it's in the top 2% among all ETFs in year-to-date flows. Again, incredible fortitude in the face of a 40% 6 months price drop and widespread media pile-on. For context, when gold fell 40% in short-term frame about 10 years ago, it saw a third of its investors bail. Not that that's a bad either, that's normal, but Bitcoin is just abnormal. And I think this really does lead into, obviously, we don't know what's happening. We could have another capitulation. I know a lot of us Bitcoiners, including Nico, are waiting for a final capitulation event, a huge dump. But I think that last point really does go into the idea of what we're seeing happen in gold right now and what we're seeing happen in Bitcoin. Based on the theory we all had of how gold acts in the system and what Bitcoin is, it is abnormal, which is what I've been saying the last couple of weeks. And I know my time frame is short. It's only been the last 3 weeks. I'm zooming in. I guess now we're on the 4th week. I am zooming in for the last month to just kind of make sense of where we currently are. But the price action, the strength of Bitcoin in the face of all the uncertainty is totally abnormal. So look, I know Nico's going to be bearish on us and, hold your tomatoes. But what if they're right? What if Saylor buying another $42 billion of Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin treasury companies as well, just fundamentally almost single-handedly take us out of what we expect this bear market to be, which is a final capitulation drop? That's my bullish case. That's the optimism for today. Now let's get a little rain on our parade. So Nico, what's your thoughts on this? Actually, I think we know where you're going to stand, but I didn't mean to cut you off. So your turn, Nico. Go.
Look, I think it comes down to this. I said this yesterday. So look, we are in a 4-year cycle until that's broken. Right now, that hasn't been broken yet. That's the reality of Bitcoin's recent price action. It is literally history repeating itself like it has done every other cycle. I know that Opti kind of took the other side of this argument in October. I remember I was telling you guys, and I got so much heat from you guys when I called it out, and I said I think we topped. I think that was the cycle top. Because I remember it was like this gut feeling of like, oh, I remember this feeling. I know this feeling. It's kind of like when they turn the lights on at a party where you're having a good time. Like you kind of know like it's over, right? And I remember having that feeling in October. Now, I think the reason it caught a lot of people off guard was because the party really never got good. Like, you know, it was building and building and building and building, but you know, that great DJ either canceled, he never came, like, you know, or
he was drunk and was ass,
or it just got shut down early, right? Like, you know, or you know, it just got shut down early. You were thinking that you're gonna stay there till like 2 a.m. and you know they turned the lights on at like 9.
And the fire marshals came in.
Exactly. And you know they turned the lights on at like 9 p.m. So it caught a lot of people off guard because we never had this euphoric phase in this Bitcoin bull cycle. We topped on apathy. We topped on people just not caring anymore. They got tired. But again, if you look at the 4-year cycle theory, we topped exactly when we were supposed to top, which was October, which was like October, which is exactly where we were supposed to top. And right now, the price action is behaving like a typical bear market year, right? So, you know, despite all of these things happening, right, like Bernstein and Michael Saylor and Strategy, we were talking about it on yesterday's show, the amount of Bitcoin that Strategy is actively buying on a daily basis, with just their stretch product alone is buying more Bitcoin daily than is actively being mined on a weekly basis, right? But all of that being said, right, this previous cycle, we kind of had a little bit of pie on our face because we said the meme. Opti said the meme in November and December. This time is different. Well,
sorry, guys.
Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? This time it wasn't different. The 4-year cycle played out exactly the same like it has in every other Bitcoin cycle. So I think the question on everybody's mind and what we're going to be observing this year, it's going to be a learning experience. You guys know where I stand. You guys know where Opti stands. Regardless, I think, you know, time in the market beats timing the market. Ultimately, fundamentally, you shouldn't be trading this thing whatsoever. But what I will tell you is, guys, on a fundamental level, like on a very basic 101 level, is the cycle theory going to break? Is the cycle theory going to break? Because right now, that is the only theory that has remained intact. All the indicators that normally indicate that we have topped, all of those broke last cycle, and it caught everyone off guard. The only thing that has remained intact is the 4-year cycle theory. So until that 4-year cycle theory breaks, unless we end the year, you know, I'm seeing these posts at like 150K, 200K, the 4-year cycle theory is intact. And what is the 4-year cycle theory saying? The 4-year cycle theory is saying that for the rest of the year, we might go lower. That's what it's saying. Despite all of this Bitcoin accumulation, which really kind of has you scratching your head a little bit.
Yeah, who's selling?
Right? Like, who the F is selling? And why is the 4-year cycle theory so powerful, right? Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy where like the OGs are just so convinced that, because at the end of the day,
dump on our heads.
Because at the end of the day, guys, like fundamentally, the vast majority of the Bitcoin supply is held by individuals. Alex Leishman did post something, it was like a couple weeks ago or so, where he did indicate and he did show that this cycle, it actually did change, where like the vast majority of accumulation is happening by institutions and businesses. But still, the vast majority of Bitcoin till this day, right now, is still held by individuals. And I actually have something for you guys during the numbers where Willy Woo actually explains why we didn't have a kind of euphoric blow off top this cycle, and he kind of does a deep dive into it. So my base case, again, is the 4-year cycle. I've been saying it since October. I have not changed my stance. The 4-year cycle is intact until it breaks. What would it take for it to break? What would it take? I think that's the question, right? I think we would need to see Bitcoin sustainably above $100,000 midsummer or October of this year for me to be convinced that the 4-year cycle is over. Until that point, I'm still convinced. Now, what could be different, and that's yet to be determined, is are we just going to chop solidate instead of the usual capitulation and the usual market dump because of how much Bitcoin is being acquired? Right? Are we going to do that? And another thing that Opti brought up, which I thought was on point, is guys, back in 2017, you guys don't know if you guys weren't around, right? What we call the good old day. We didn't realize how good the good old days were. Bitcoin would pump on a rumor, right?
Literally.
So like literally if it was, and it was like bullshit articles. It was like fake articles that would come out. And it was like BlackRock interested in Bitcoin. They totally weren't.
I mean, it was like 6 years early.
It was like 4 or 5 years before they even happened, whatever. If that type of article would hit the market, Bitcoin that day would pump 25%, right? So it's reached an asset class. It's reached such a size as an asset that at this point, that type of breaking news isn't really going to move the needle. I think the only thing that's going to move the needle right now is 2 pieces of legislation. 2 pieces of news breaking. Number one is the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. I don't think that's going to happen. The Republicans are more than likely going to lose the House in November. Trump is going to get impeached. I hope the Clarity Act gets passed. Now, going back to the Clarity Act, right? We had Frank Holmes, the executive chairman of HIVE Digital Technologies, which is a publicly traded Bitcoin miner and HPC company. And he said that if the Clarity Act gets passed, we're going to see $250,000 Bitcoin. And I've heard that from other very intelligent people in the industry as well. I think that if the Clarity Act gets passed, I think that is the type of thing that will push the price of Bitcoin up 100%. But those are the only 2 pieces of news, right? We had it so easy back then.
Wait, what was the other one? You said Clarity Act and what?
So the Clarity Act passing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I got that.
Right now.
Sorry, I was in the chat. So what was the other one?
The Clarity Act passing, and then the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I was
Strategic
agreeing.
Bitcoin Reserve.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
So Strategic Bitcoin Reserve or the Clarity Act. Now,
Okay.
I do want to take a look at what the odds are for the Clarity Act. The Clarity Act right now is at 64% that it passes. Right. So it is actually above what it is above 50%, which I think is a very good sign for sure. But I would say those are the only 2 pieces of news that would move the needle, Opti. I would say those are the only 2 pieces of news that would move the needle.
I would agree.
And then let's talk a little bit about, before we move on to the next segment, a little bit about what we were talking about yesterday regarding Svetsky and all of that stuff. So I think, and I also talked about this on Roxham as well, Bitcoin right now is entering a new phase of its life. What do I mean by that? The era of early adopters is over. We are entering the era of the early majority, right? The early majority, that's where we are in kind of the adoption curve, which is really exciting. But also, you kind of have this like, you kind of have this feeling of nostalgia of the early days, right? The early days of the Wild West, of the crazy volatility of all that stuff. I still think we have volatility. I still think we have massive upside in Bitcoin. You know what? it's only just extended over a period of time. That's the only difference between Bitcoin back in 2017 and Bitcoin today, is that these volatile movements do happen, but they happen over longer periods of time, right? That's the only difference. But the volatility is there. Ladies and gentlemen, less than 6 months ago, we're down 45%. If that's not a volatile asset, I don't know what is, right? And volatility is life. Like, if there's volatility like that to the downside, there's volatility like that to the upside, right? So yes, very bullish news with Bernstein and with Michael Saylor accumulating all of the supply and all of that stuff. But you know what? From my perspective, the 4-year cycle is intact. It's real until I see otherwise. Until I see evidence that the 4-year cycle is broken, I'm believing in the 4-year cycle, because that's the only thing that has held up. Dude, it timed it to the T. It timed the top to the T. If you would have just followed the 4-year cycle theory, you would have sold a little bit at the top. Don't recommend trading Bitcoin, by the way.
Should have totally done that. My friend told me to.
Sold a little bit at the top, and then you would have been able to buy a little bit more at the bottom, or at a 45% discount. So yes,
yeah, I would have been able to buy twice as much.
Very, very bullish news. Very bullish news. 100%. No doubt in my mind, ladies and gentlemen. However, the 4-year cycle is intact until it's not.
Well, yeah, no, but I think you're making a good point though, and I know the chat's going to totally miss this because they're just like, Nico's a bear again. But I think the point that most people might miss, and it's popping in my head right now, is like, if Nico's correct and we do see another capitulation action, right now is most likely, and maybe I'll eat these words and maybe I'll look back in 3 months and I was wrong about this and this was like the absolute bottom, but it's probably not the time to smash buy with your entire capital that you have right now. Right now is probably the time to continue to just like DCA it out.
It never.
Well, I capitulate my fiat whenever I get it, so I'm a little different.
Look,
I literally do that. That's all I do.
The best strategy, no pun intended, that has stood the test of time when it comes to growing your wealth with Bitcoin. The best strategy, it has not failed, ladies and gentlemen. It has not failed, is this. Buy a little bit every day. Make sure you have more Bitcoin today than the day before, and go about your life. Focus on increasing your fiat income so that you could put it into Bitcoin. But timing the tops and timing the bottoms, ladies and gentlemen, it is literally impossible. You can kind of get an idea of, okay, we're near somewhat of a bottom. You can kind of definitely get that because, like, if the asset's down like 50, 60, 70%, you're like, okay, all right, bro, like, can't really go lower. Sometimes it does. So like maybe there you get a little bit more aggressive in terms of your dollar cost average strategy, but the time tested method is dollar cost averaging Bitcoin. You do that over a long period of time, you're going to end up looking like a genius. It just takes patience. It just takes time, right? And the rule of thumb that I tell everybody is it takes 4 years in Bitcoin to realize that you made a good decision.
I don't know. It takes 4 years to just round trip.
Takes 4 years. No, it applies to what you're saying.
I know, I'm trolling. Let's
bring up what Opti's saying. Let's bring up what Opti's saying, right? So what he's saying that is because, like, look, exactly
we're
4
back
years,
at what,
exactly
2021 highs?
at 4 years ago, we were at 2021 highs. But here's the thing: if you would have kept dollar cost averaging,
yeah, you'd be good.
For the next year, you would have bought Bitcoin at 16K. If you would have kept buying, you would have bought Bitcoin at 30K, at 40K, at 50K, at 60K. You would have averaged out your entry, right? This is why DCAing is so important. So the rule of thumb is this. It takes 4 years to realize that you made a good decision in Bitcoin, and it takes 8 years to realize that it takes 8 years to realize that to feel that you're relatively wealthier than the people around you because you've migrated to a Bitcoin standard. So it takes a long amount of time. Like, it's not something that happens overnight. And, you know, we kind of live in, and this is why so many people gravitate to altcoins, because altcoins give that false promise of like getting rich overnight, like that lottery ticket type of feeling, right? But with Bitcoin, it's not a lottery ticket, so to speak, that, okay, the next day you're going to be like a multimillionaire, but it is a lottery ticket in terms of, if you have the discipline and the low time preference and the patience, I guarantee you, guarantee is a very strong word, that you're going to be in a much better place, you know, in the future than where you are now. That's a very strong thing to say, but I stick by it. You know, and this is I've been living what I've been preaching for the last decade or so, right? So anyways, to weave back in the original argument, then we're going to bring on a guest. We got our boy Q in the wings. Regarding, you know, Bernstein and Saylor and buying all this Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, they're buying all this Bitcoin. Perhaps we're not seeing a capitulation because of the amount of Bitcoin that they're buying. However, from my perspective, guys, the 4-year cycle is playing out exactly like it's played out every other time. That's,
well, not exactly.
That's the more
timing wise,
dude. Exactly like every other time.
I think the timing's the only thing off the year so wrong. Q, hey, dude, we're not bringing Q on.
Anyways, so I gotta give a shout out to the live stream. We got over 1,000 people watching live across X, YouTube, Rumble. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. You're listening to Simply Bitcoin Live, the most watched Bitcoin live show on planet Earth right now. It feels really good to say that.
It's kind of a trip.
Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. We're going to be right back after the break. We got our boy Q in the wings. We got tons to talk about. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by BitcoinWell Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. BitcoinWell Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded, non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, everybody, guys, store your seed phrase the right way. Go over to stampseed.com today. Again, stampseed.com. Use promo code SIMPLY. You get 15% off. Don't write down your seed words on paper. Stamp them into a plate of titanium with the StampSeed kit. Again, promo code SIMPLY, 15% off. Q, what's up, dude? Good to see you. How are you, my friend?
Nico, it's such a pleasure to get to see you, man. Thank you for having me.
Dude, pleasures. I mean, the honor's all ours, man. I haven't seen you in forever. Good to see you. Good vibes like always. Opti's here in the wings. It's going to be a great show, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, huge announcement. Q has officially joined our friends over at BitcoinWell.
Let's go.
Best place to buy yourself some real Bitcoin. Anyways, guys, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $71,100. Sats per dollar, 1,406. Block height, 942,180. Realized monetary inflation, 0.834%. 0.83%. Market cap, 1.42 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 4.75. Percentage issued 95.27 and decline from all-time high. If you're buying Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a 43% discount. Anyways, I saw this thread by Willy Woo, and he had some interesting things to say. So he's talking about the previous cycle, why we didn't have a euphoric top. He's blaming a lot of it on crypto. And anyways, and then we did get some notable figures in the industry commenting on this. This post seemed to have performed very well. Willy Woo says, "I'm seeing crypto folk falling into the, what is that? Trope.
I think it says trough.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Opti.
into the trough
Wow.
of despair.
Nico-
Dude, you guys can't speak English. How do I do
Bro,
it?
I didn't get here by knowing how to read. I got here by
Well,
knowing
we know.
If Opti's the one correcting us, we're all screwed.
Yeah, we're cooked.
Anyways, how do you say it again?
Dude, it's trough, and I can
Trough,
barely
okay.
read that right now.
I'm seeing
Falling
crypto-
into the trough
I'm
of
seeing
despair.
crypto folk falling into the trough of despair after an abysmal bull market with mainly losers and BTC outperforming their beta. Let me tell you a story that tells you why you got screwed. It starts with the end of FTX. When the bankruptcy folk came in to liquidate FTF assets, their mandate was to sell everything. This included vast quantities of locked Solana. They inadvertently invented something new, selling an asset that was locked up on chain through the magic of legal sale agreement. Pay me now, I deliver later. The deal got passed around the ecosystem. Fund managers bought up the locked SOL at more than a 60% discount to compensate for being locked up and exposed to the token price. Many hedge funds bought the deal. They knew they could hedge the token price on future markets by shorting SOL, pocketing 70 to 80% yields at near zero risk. They liked it and asked, where can we get more of this? Herein lies your problem as a crypto investor in 2023 to 2025. Every crypto project has backers and a foundation who has great wads locked tokens that have been sold to hedge funds and dumped on you immediately through future markets. All your alpha went to market neutral hedge funds pocketing risk-free yield. This is why crypto in 2023 and 2025 underperformed. You got dumped on prematurely. On the bright side, many of these projects, even though they have quote locked up tokens ready to dump on paper, in reality they have been sold already, so they will logically perform without the expected sell pressure in the next bull market, given they have been effectively sold already. Not that I recommend buying crypto. You need to be an insider to get an edge. It works like a casino. The house will take your money. The house in 2023 to 2025 were the people who understood this trade. Just buy BTC and get on with your life. Simon Dixon responded, the financial industrial complex loved the FTX Chapter 11. I followed every stage of it, and what I saw was clear. Chapter 11 is another wealth transfer to a small club within the FIC, one that profits while lawyers drain the creditors. I spent 2 years inside one of these processes as a major creditor, obsessing over every detail and learning firsthand just how rigged the system could be. For me, it was an education. I could afford the loss, but I met creditors who lost everything, their retirement, their homes, even their countries. What? Does that say countries?
Okay.
Oh, man. That says countries.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, was Bukele on FTX? We didn't know it.
I can read I can read countries. I'm just like, holy shit, there's a creditor who lost their country. How do you lose a country? And what country is that?
I don't know.
Like, what
Bhutan?
country is that? No, bro. Bhutan's thriving. They're the happiest country on earth.
But that's the only country that I know was caught up in. I don't know. Well, no. I don't know.
The Celsius debacle.
Yeah,
you're talking about.
But
Okay.
it's the same debacle.
Some didn't make it through. Oh my God, I can't say that on YouTube. That's when it became clear how Chapter 11 is treated as opportunities to scoop up assets from the most vulnerable. Don't put humans or corporate wrappers between you and your Bitcoin in self-custody. Just buy BTC and get on with your life. Then someone responded, I don't know why everyone's laughing.
Because you can't read, bro.
Yeah, the chat is kind of roasting you right now, Nico.
It's all good. They roast me every time, right? They come for my takes, not for my ability to read, I guess. Anyway,
I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but keep going.
BTC OGs dumped billions. This is another person commenting. BTC OGs dumped billions, if not tens of billions, on our heads in 2025 too. Willy Woo responded, yes, and we know that because it was visible, not done insider deals away from public scrutiny. It still outperformed crypto. Someone else said, why didn't you post this while it was happening back then? Willy Woo responded, I've posted for years why crypto is a casino. I mainly post on BTC as that's my focus. I'm not here to warn crypto investors anymore. Nobody listens to a BTC maxi on crypto. You guys know the game you play.
Facts.
Mike Alfred responds, everything is fine. The 4-year bear market is ending now. So are you on the side of
Mike Alfred?
Are you on the side of Mike Alfred? So anyways, I kind of want to open it up for conversation. Willy Woo definitely has some good takes. Q, what do you think about this, bro?
I mean, I never thought the 4-year cycle was dead. I'm going to take my victory lap right now. I was on plenty of podcasts where people are like, it's over. 4-year cycle is dead. Yeah, Opti, I see you. No, Opti, I see you. Oh my God, we got an all-time high before the halving. This is crazy. It's broken. No, everything is still well within the boundary constraints of what a 4-year cycle looks like. The truth is, as like the tea leaf reader guy here who loves TA and all that shit, the truth is though, everything that has happened to cause the market downturn right now, or even 4 years ago, or even 8 years ago, there was something externally that was happening that drove market prices lower. And while we want to try to find an explanation on, we reached resistance at 125K and we rejected it and we went lower. It's like, sure, yeah. And then we also started dropping bombs on the Middle East, and we're also getting reports that people were options trading the all the Bitcoin ETFs. That was driving demand lower. All of a sudden, you're seeing the net effect of outside impact that dictates and determines what actually happens within the context of price action, which is textbook. If anyone is not familiar with how stocks trade and how traders report previously, we reached resistance, which coincides with the moment where they announced their drug didn't get approval and then the stock cratered down. That is what happens with price action in the stock market. That is what's happening in the price action here in the Bitcoin market as well. And it has been happening for the last 13 years, and it's going to keep happening in that way for the foreseeable future until we finally decouple and have real education for those who move markets, i.e. the big money out of New York and elsewhere. Until they really understand what Bitcoin can be, we're just going to be at the mercy of whatever happens news-wise. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that's just my take.
Amen. I think it's a great take. It's a great take.
Me too.
I appreciate the 21 sats on Nostr. Great take from Q. See, Opti, we got 2 4-year cycle believers.
All right, you guys can beat on me. I'll take the beatings today. It's all right. It's all right. You know.
Okay, Opti, hear me out on this, because I think Willy has some truth to what he's saying, but I think there's something that I want. What's his Arthur Hayes? I need Arthur Hayes to like be put on a hot mic under oath and talk to us about this, because I have a theory that we can't. There's no way to really confirm this unless BitMEX actually publicly comes out and says, "Hey, this is the case and this is what happened." I firmly believe that all of these sort of leveraged long positions that we saw, especially in the bull run last cycle, they were in a situation where, I have 100x or 10x leverage position. Well, if Bitcoin reached anywhere from like 75K to 85K, the payout for those positions would have resulted in more than 21 million Bitcoin having to be paid out. There's no way to pay that out. And so BitMEX is taking the opposite side of the trade. That's why you had people like Dylan Leclerc going on and saying, look, you are literally getting paid money to take the short position on Bitcoin at some of these institutions because they needed you to take that position to essentially create sell pressure. So I think that the 69K peak from last cycle was artificially suppressed. Let's say it was supposed to reach 100K last cycle. Let's say it was supposed to reach 90K last cycle. By those levels of highs from the last cycle, we didn't make a new all-time high before the halving, and everything still operates as it should under the eyes of your 4-year cycle.
No, yeah, I that's a pretty good take there.
I mean, bro, look, what did I tell you about there being more Bitcoin?
Yeah. Sorry, wrong one. Yeah, there's 42 million Bitcoin, guys.
There's 42 million Bitcoin. but here's the thing. Like
I forgot this was simply Litecoin.
the moment the market sniffs that out, I think we're gonna see the greatest bank run or exchange run. I don't even know what the term is here. I think the industry has ever seen. Who needs Sailor? We got Nico. No other asset has a limit. So the chat's going wild today, isn't it? Anyways, guys, it's going to be a fantastic show. We got Q from BitcoinWell joining us today. We're going to be talking about all things BitcoinWell. We're going to be giving away some sats towards the end of the show. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned in for that. But before we do that, we do want to get into the news segment for all the Tether truthers. Tether is getting a huge, massive audit from notable, very reputable accounting firms. But there's entire people that have built massive followings, trying to expose Tether and this conspiracy. And they just got a lot of pie on their face yesterday. And they must be seething right now because major announcement that the Tether team made yesterday. Congratulations to them. So I'm going to break that news during the news segment. Also, some news coming out of the Fed, which I found quite interesting. We'll see if we can get to that. And then again, we're going to be talking about all things BitcoinWell. Again, the only self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramp in the United States of America. It is self-custody by default. And of course, we got our boy Q here to talk about that. So anyways, guys, we're going to be right back just after the break. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Ledn lets you unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without ever having to sell it. Since 2018, they've issued over $10 billion in loans to more than 10,000 customers worldwide. I love these guys, and not only do I have an account with them, I also have a loan. And here's what really sets them apart. There are no monthly payments, and you can pay back the loan at any time. Once you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you can have cash in your account within 24 hours. Ledn has over 1,000 5-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or single sat of customer funds. So if you want to tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it, head over to learn.ledn.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost
stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY.
All right, everybody, before we get back to the show, guys, take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Go to bitkey.world today. Use promo code SIMPLY. Again, promo code SIMPLY. You get 20% off. Don't leave your Bitcoin on exchanges. You want to take self-custody. This is literally the easiest Bitcoin hardware wallet to use on the market right now. It has multi-sig built in. It has inheritance built in. All you got to do to use it is you put your fingerprint, you tap it with your phone, bam, bing, bam, boom. You're ready to send your Bitcoin. It's fantastic. Highly, highly recommend it. Again, bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. So this specifically for the Tether truthers, talk about wrecked. Tether signs engagement with a big four firm for its Hopti, I can't do this if you're just laughing.
I'm sorry, dude. I was laughing at the chat, but be self-conscious over there.
Bitcoin,
Don't mess with my soundboard. That's rude.
Tether signs engagement with a big four firm for its first full.
Bro, how can I not laugh at you when you can't even read normal words? These are literally. I have
pressure now,
bro. These are single syllable words.
Let's try for the third time. Tether signs engagement with a big four firm for its first full audit. Woo, got it right that time. Anyway. Oh man, you guys are
so proud of you, Nico.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Anyways, here's Yellow making a joke of it. It says they have no assets. Users, they've been redeeming my USDT for USD with no problem for years. They haven't been audited. Users, they handled the biggest run during the pandemic crash with no problem. Yeah, but why don't they audit Tether? Here, an audit from the big four, and Trigger. Absolutely hilarious. Jack Mahler's comments, the GOAT. Samson Mao, historic. Another reason why it's so huge is that Tether operates on such a massive scale. I was sure one of the smaller stablecoins would try to get it first, but I guess their priorities are elsewhere. Well done, Tether team. Eric Yates says audited Tether is final form evolution. Mauricio from Ledin says congratulations, Paolo and team. So yeah, I mean, there's like literally an account that has me blocked. It's called what is it? What's the account?
Is it Bitfinex?
Bitfinex or something?
I think it's Bitfinex.
But it's like spelled interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the one. I think that's the Tether truther.
So he built basically this entire audience, right? Basically on trying to expose Tether. He spent at least a decade of his life by now trying to do this. And here you go. I mean,
Bitfinex Ed. I found it.
Yeah, that's the one. Bitfinex.
Bitfinex with the D. So yeah, I mean, it's not a good day to be a Tether truther. Pie on your face. And yeah, again, big fan of Tether. For me personally, and obviously it's because again, if you're from the global South, it's giving you access to digital dollars, which is fantastic, right? And it gives you the ability to, interact with the global economy, which is great. And I also see it as a Trojan horse or as a stepping stone towards Bitcoin. So bad day to be a Tether truther. Anyways, also some news breaking by our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. The headline is 5 ways the Fed's Basel III pivot unlocks institutional Bitcoin custody. Here are some of the bullet points. So the Fed is moving to remove major barriers for banks to offer Bitcoin services. What were the three things that Michael Saylor said that Bitcoin needed to do for it to hit $5 million per coin? Number one was the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. Number two was a change of the FASB accounting rules. And number three was the ability for banks to custody Bitcoin. So you had Kraken finally approved. It has a Fed banking charter, so it's allows is a crypto on ramp, so to speak. So that's a major win. I don't think that would have happened with a Democrat administration. And then obviously Citibank making that major announcement at the Bitcoin for Corporations, where they basically went on stage. Citibank went on stage and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to give our clients the ability to custody Bitcoin." The next bit is Bitcoin no longer treated as a toxic asset on bank balance sheets. Older rules force banks to hold 100% capital against Bitcoin exposure. New framework replaces that with standard risk-based treatment. Massive win for Bitcoin custody. Big banks can now offer custody without excess capital penalties. Likely leads to cheaper institutional grade Bitcoin custody. Banks getting 4.8% capital relief, frees up balance sheets to expand into Bitcoin and digital asset services. More banks entering equals more competition plus lower fees. Standardized rules across the system. Removes inconsistent treatment between banks. Makes it easier for corporations to allocate to Bitcoin. The Fed is signaling a shift. Bring Bitcoin activity back into regulated banks. Reverses the trend of activity moving to non-bank players. Bottom line is this unlocks Wall Street access to Bitcoin infrastructure. Quiet, but a major step forward for full institutional adoption. So this is a big piece of news that broke that I saw absolutely no Bitcoin content creator talk about, but it's massive. And again, it's massive in regards to Bitcoin being integrated with the traditional financial system, which was one of Elizabeth Mayer's, because that camp wants central bank digital currencies. I think if you have a choice between a CBDC and something like Bitcoin, I think you're naturally going to choose Bitcoin. However, I said all of this, but I do want to say a word of caution. The word of caution is this. The revolution is individuals taking Bitcoin into self-custody. It's not banks custodying Bitcoin. So this might be positive for number go up, but you have to remember why we're here, right? We can only fix the money, fix the world if individuals are taking custody of their keys, right? That's the only way to really change the system of individuals reclaiming back their financial sovereignty by taking self-custody of their Bitcoin. So big breaking news, Tether truthers absolutely wrecked, and the Fed kind of changing their stance on Bitcoin a little bit, which I think is a good thing. And again, all of this, elections do have consequences. I'll leave it at that. Anyways, Q, what's your take on all this, my friend?
I think these two stories are actually more related than we realize. One of the big things that happened over the course of the last 12 months is we saw the Genius Act and other forms of crypto legislation coming out of this administration, with like the quiet part being said out loud that I have been surprised that no one really globbed onto this, but it's like a core memory for me now, listening to David Sachs essentially admit and say that the small banking institutions tried to block the Genius Act simply because they were afraid that stablecoin issuers would be able to outcompete them in the marketplace, offering higher interest rates, higher returns on deposits versus what these smaller local banks can offer. So they sort of put a memorandum and a cap on, if you're going to be a stablecoin issuer and come to the United States, you cannot offer interest payments to any deposits being put into your platform, to allow these banking institutions to have time to catch up. So that is what this Fed, that is a part of what we're seeing Tether do, is they're trying to sort of button up, get everything in order so that they can launch Tether US and become the largest stablecoin issuer here stateside as fast as possible. At the same time, we're seeing the Fed try to do everything possible to make banks have an easier time onboarding Bitcoin, stablecoins, whatever they think they need to do to stay competitive in a rapidly changing environment and in an industry that honestly, the last time it was changed, it was forced to change after the 2008 financial crisis. Before that, it wasn't changing for anything or anyone, not since Nixon took us off the gold standard in 71.
I mean, I love Q. I love Q. God damn. It's almost as if he hosted a show before.
Yeah, it's almost like he had a show before.
It's almost as if he has experience doing this. Opti, your take.
No, I mean, I think Q absolutely nailed it. It's totally related. Maybe you don't see that because it's like, you know, Tether and then the Fed. But what was interesting about this Basel III proposal is that they didn't actually change anything after they did this meeting. But it's kind of what Nico always says, you know, the Overton window. And the fact that they're having these conversations and the fact that they're even considering treating Bitcoin less like a toxic asset just shows that they are maybe very slowly, but realizing no matter what they do, they're going to have to compete with where we currently are in the world. And to the Tether truthers out there, I mean, Nico, you've gotten some heat in the past for being such a big fan of Tether.
Well, let me
hold on, but dude, Tether's our boys, dude. Like they're Bitcoiners. They're in the industry. They're doing really good stuff for Bitcoin in every corner of Bitcoin. And like the Bitfinex guys used to say, or Guy and all the other Tether truthers, like if there really was a problem with Tether, like that would be really bad for all of us. So I am super happy to hear this news. Shouts out to the audit.
Yeah, shout out to the Tether team. I think they've crushed it. And again, I think they. I had the honor of being able to interview Paulo, and I remember asking him, the first question that I asked him was like, dude, like, how did you build the most profitable company on the face of the planet? And he was like, he was so humble about it. He was like, by pure luck, right? So like, essentially they created something that the world needed that it didn't know it needed. Because I think the original thesis and the theory behind Bitcoin was like, in countries that had double-digit inflation, you would have massive Bitcoin adoption. You had some Bitcoin adoption, but what people failed to realize is that most people don't have disposable income and they're living paycheck to paycheck. And Bitcoin, with its volatility, actually isn't all that great with, its volatility, right? So this is where, digital dollars, aka Tether, comes in and it serves the market, right? It fulfills the market. And again, as a Venezuelan, you just hear how much Tether is being used in Venezuela as people seek an alternative to the local bolivar, which again, the inflation rate is not that great, right? And you don't have to deal with the capital controls. You don't have to deal with the censorship, the political situation. You don't have to deal with any of that, right? You have access to digital dollars, which I think is a net positive. And again, I think all roads lead to Bitcoin. I think this gets people exposed to it gets people exposed to digital assets, a wallet, and then eventually, again, they're going to come to the realization that all Bitcoiners have come to, which is again, it still has inflation, right? And this is Bitcoin is really the only thing that fixes this, right? So, anyways,
wait. Can I add another little wrinkle in here? On this news about the full Tether audit. The morning this happened, we saw Circle USDC, which is Coinbase's stable coin, drop like 18 or 20%. So on another note, not only is Tether fully backed and audited, but I think they're kind of hurting Coinbase. So it's kind of a double whammy here when we know that the Clarity Act is being presumably held up. And I don't even know if it's necessarily good, but was being held up over the stablecoin yield because it did look like Brian Armstrong was trying to protect his moat with Circle. And it looks like Tether's just eating his lunch. So, Tether team just doing two things here.
I mean,
stepping on Coinbase's toes. I'm kind of happy this happened.
Yeah, winning all around. Anyways, guys, we're going to get to the culture and we're going to talk to Q about BitcoinWell, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. We're going to be right back after the break, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale
into high performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody, we got Q from BitcoinWell. We're going to be giving away some sats in a little bit with the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. Q, welcome to the show, my friend. And bro, I haven't had a chance to, like, I think we talked on the phone, but we haven't had a chance to, you know, just bicker around, chat, be on a show together. I think it's been years at this point. So you've been greatly missed, man.
No, it's been far too long, and puts a smile on my face getting to see your pretty face.
Yeah, Q. Dude.
Not yours.
I know. I wasn't going to talk about my face. It wasn't about my face. It was more on the side of, we've been missing funny people in Bitcoin for a while, and I've been trying to hold it down. And you know, I have to keep a leash on over here because Nico thinks I say too much crazy stuff, and you instantly come on, and we're just like, people are like, "What the hell am I watching?" Like, well, they're just literally shooting the shit, just having fun. So it's good to have you back, bro.
Dude, that's what it's meant to be. We're just three
Right.
bros hanging out.
And everyone forgets rule number 1. If you're not having fun, why are you doing this?
Exactly.
Particularly this guy.
Excellent.
Man, we all know you could stand to have a little bit less fun.
That's true. That is true. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Oh man, thank you, Q. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
All right, hey, this is not about roasting me. All right, we're roasting him.
So while we were prepping the show this morning, you know, which usually starts around like 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m.
Dude, don't put me on blast like this.
I get a call.
This is why I was a little late. This is why we were a little late.
5 minutes before we start our usual show prep.
20 minutes.
Okay, whatever. And I'm like, why is Opti not at the studio? What the hell is going on? And I get a call. He's like, yo, Nico, I locked my keys inside my car. I'm going to be running late. And I'm like, what, bro, what do you mean? He's like, no, don't worry. I'm calling a mechanic. Shows up 30 minutes late.
No, dude, I was in the meeting. All right. It was just on my phone. I wasn't in the studio, but true story. I did lock myself out of my car this morning. I went to the gym. I went and grabbed a snack out of my backpack, a little protein snack, and I closed the door. And as I close it, I'm like, no, my keys.
So while you guys are like, oh man, like Opti has to deal with Nico, I have to.
Yeah, maybe it's you have to deal with me.
And then also too, which Opti making flights, right? So
all right, dude, don't put all my dirty laundry out here.
Opti's missed 4 flights in total.
How?
And at this point,
well, I think it's 2 to 3.
At this point,
one was my fault. The other one wasn't. Actually, the other 2 weren't.
At this point, what I do is when I know Opti has a flight, I text him 2 hours before the flight, a day before the flight.
True.
And then I text him to confirm.
And he has to book my flights.
and I text him to confirm that he is on the airplane.
This is
That's
true.
a good friend.
I agree.
A great friend.
I agree.
Because if not, he will miss the flight. Anyways, we're going to give away some Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bitcoin Wishing Well portal. By the way that you earn these points is you buy Bitcoin on BitcoinWell, and then you earn BitcoinWell points. And with those BitcoinWell points, you can get a stamp seed plate with the well on the back. You can get a leather mint wallet. You can get a Bitcoin nutrition hoodie. You can get a BitAxe solo miner. And then if you earn 69 million points, Adam O'Brien will personally deliver to you an orange wrapped Cybertruck, which I think is super, super badass. So anyways, you could also use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. It breaks down the odds right here. So you win every single time. And you have a 1 in 10,000 chance of winning up to 1 million sats.
We've done 9,000 spins on this show.
Not yet.
No, we've probably done like 1,000.
Well, Opti, I can confirm that someone won it a few weeks ago.
Really? Damn. Should've been me.
We like see when your account does it, and it's like a skip. It's just like
So-
automatically in the 19 to 20.
So we're gonna toss a coin into the wishing
Watch
well.
it happen right now when my Lightning wallet's not
And
out.
210 sats. First person to scan the QR code. I'm gonna leave it up until someone scans it.
Do the unclaimed sats because sometimes they don't scan them.
So scan it with your Lightning wallet. I'm gonna do it if no one
Nico's
does it.
pulling out his wallet.
Free sats are on the screen. If anyone's watching this and not scared,
Yeah, seriously.
All right, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Wait, someone says you had 9,000 rolls scheduled.
There we go. Hold on. Boom. All right, I'll take it.
Nico stole the sats. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. All right, do it again. And guys, get
Chat.
your Lightning wallets out now before
Boom.
Nico steals the sats.
All right, now we're
chat
gonna do
is
it again.
asleep at the wheel right now,
For
or they're
reals.
We're
or they're
doing
locked out.
we're doing it again. We're doing it again. All right,
Dude,
ladies,
I guess what the chat just doesn't have Lightning wallets. Bunch of scrubs.
we're doing it again. Tossing a coin into the wishing well. Let's
And
see.
Nico pulls out his wallet right now.
210 sats. So
Let it ride. Let it
I
ride. Let
wonder,
it ride.
this button is
All
new.
right, all right.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we should be asking Q some questions about Bitcoin. Well, why you do the wishing well?
That
No,
makes
I
too
wanna-
much sense. Off chill.
I want to ask you about BitcoinWell Infinite, which is a very, very white glove service. It's designed for people that have higher net worth, family offices, et cetera, family offices, high net worth individuals, trusts, organizations. But essentially, it's a white glove service. You're going to have a dedicated rep like you that you can call, you can text, you can bother, and essentially they'll be your dedicated advisor to help you on your Bitcoin journey on purchasing Bitcoin. So Q, could you talk a little bit about that?
Totally. And I want to add one little thing. It's not just about purchasing Bitcoin, it's also self-custodying Bitcoin. And that's what separates BitcoinWell Infinite from every other exchange, especially here in the United States. This is not an exchange where you're just going to like buy Bitcoin and it sits there. You literally can't. We won't let you do that. You have to, in setting up the account, also have a hardware wallet and have to be prepared to take self-custody of the Bitcoin shortly after purchasing. That's not how it works at River. That's not how it works at Swan, Strike. Everywhere else is a custodial exchange. We are non-custodial. I want every single hardcore Bitcoiner to understand that, because instead of having to say, not your keys, not your coins, having to remind people, get your Bitcoin off the exchange, that's what BitcoinWell does from the jump. We are the Bitcoin exchange for real Bitcoiners and their friends and family. And that's what myself and our team is here to do, is to help make sense of this journey. I've been doing this for quite some time. The joke was, before I started getting paid to do this role, that there's a job out there that I could just do what I've been doing in my free time for my friends and family and just do it as a job and get paid to do it. That sounds kind of surreal and ideal, quite frankly. But that's a high level of, you do not have to go about this alone. If you are confused, if you don't understand, what you're doing, how to set things up, or even just the right way to go about making your first Bitcoin purchase, it's not the same for everyone. And that's what having a dedicated advisor like myself helps with, to better understand your situation, what your goals are, and ultimately the best way for you yourself to store and save in Bitcoin.
I absolutely love that, man. It's a personalized journey, and I think let's talk a little bit about the differentiation, Q, because I think what a lot of these on ramps, not to name any names, but a lot of these on ramps, like by default, essentially when you buy Bitcoin on them, they just let you leave the Bitcoin on the on ramp, right? Which again, like we've been talking about the mission and how the revolution is self-custody this entire show. And this is really what differentiates BitcoinWell from a lot of the other Bitcoin only exchanges is, again, BitcoinWell emphasizes on self-custody, right? And that includes for people that are buying large amounts of Bitcoin. Like, you still fit into that category, so to speak. So could you talk a little bit about that, Q, what the philosophy is behind that, et cetera, et cetera?
Totally. It's rooted in the way the company was founded. Adam, the CEO and founder, like BitcoinWell has been around for coming up on 13 years. Like, we are one of the oldest companies in the Bitcoin space. We started as an 18ist, like you had to have a wallet to send the Bitcoin to. So from the company's inception, we've, whether intentionally or unintentionally, always been self-custody advocates. And then as we've transitioned and grown the business and turned it into now an online portal and a proper exchange here in the US as well as around the world, that ethos still rings true from the early days of the company. We will always, always, always advocate and help our customers and clients to self custody and to better understand self custody. Because what works for Nico doesn't work for me, and vice versa. What works for one of my clients here in Los Angeles won't work for another one of my clients up in Canada. Every single person is unique in their own Bitcoin journey and what their comfort level makes sense. No one should be going to bed worried about the price of Bitcoin, nor should they be worried about the security and safety of their Bitcoin.
Absolutely, 100%. By the
Hold
way,
on, I think that's. I just want to emphasize, like, not a lot of Bitcoiners talk about the fact that, like, there is no one size fits all. And this is why when I would talk about like Bitcoin wallets to people on the show, they'd always be like, just give me one. And I'm like, well, I don't really know where
100%.
you're at. Like, I don't know how technical you are. You know, do you want something that's easy and convenient, like for your grandma to use, or like your mother and sister and brother who aren't hardcore Bitcoiners? Or am I talking to like a hardcore Bitcoiner technical that just hasn't, you know, really maybe delve into different hardware wallets, et cetera? And it's just like, there really is no one size fits all, and that's not a bad thing. And we really, even us here, like, we don't talk about that enough. So it is kind of just refreshing to hear Q be like, look, it's not just like buy this, do this. It's like, well, let me see where you are, because I don't want you to wreck yourself.
100%. 100%. Like, the idea that like everyone should have a cold card is ludicrous to me. Absolutely ludicrous. Everyone should have a form of self-custody, but let's be perfectly honest. I have a cold card. I love it. I would never give that to my mom. She would be so overwhelmed. She would lose that Bitcoin within 30 minutes. 30 minutes and it's gone. So like, every single person, to Opti's point, like, just because you're using the Trezor as a Bitcoin only doesn't make you any less of a Bitcoiner, because if that's what makes sense for you, that's what makes sense. And that's infinitely better than just leaving your Bitcoin on Coinbase. Infinitely so.
Absolutely.
The other side of it too, that we also talk about, and this is one of the sort of bread and butter of what Bitcoin Infinite does, is figuring out, like, you know, what makes sense as far as how to invest into Bitcoin. You know, we hear a lot around the conversation of, oh, everyone should DCA, or, you know, set limit orders, this or that. It's like, again, it depends. It 100% depends on your situation, your financial, what are your goals? And the other thing that I love knowing about my clients is like, what, you know, are there moments where we need to potentially be decreasing your taxable income this year? The best example I can give is, one of the first things I ask clients always is like, do you own property? Are you selling property this year? If the answer is yes, let's just lump sum into Bitcoin now, because one of two things happens. Either the price of Bitcoin goes down. Oh, so sad. We're going to tax loss harvest. You're going to decrease the amount of taxes you're going to pay when you eventually sell that home later this year. Or the price of Bitcoin goes up, in which case everyone's celebrating either way. But those are unique scenarios. Like, I'm not a homeowner. That doesn't benefit me. For me, it makes more sense to just be DCAing on the reg. But again, case by case.
Absolutely. You got to meet people where they are. I think that's incredibly important, and everyone is different, right? 100%. 100% agree with that. Before we close it out, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Bitcoin 2026 is going to be one of the largest Bitcoin. No, it is the largest Bitcoin conference on planet Earth. I call it Bitcoin Super Bowl weekend. If you use promo code SIMPLY, again, promo code SIMPLY, you get 10% off your tickets. It's April 27th through the 29th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. You're not going to want to miss it. Bitcoin 2026. The speaker list is awesome. You have Michael Saylor, you have Paul Atkins, you have Mike Selig, you have Eric Trump, you have Jack Mallers, Adam Back, Senator Lummis, David Marcus, you know, Simon Gerkovich of Metaplanet, Fred Thiel, and many, many more. So you guys don't want to miss the largest Bitcoin conference of the year, Bitcoin 2026 in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Venetian Hotel, April 27th through the 29th. You're not going to want to miss this Bitcoin conference. Again, use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your tickets. All right, everybody.
Wait, Nick, can we do one last thing? One last thing. Q, if people want you to be their infinite well, what is it? Advisor. Can they reach out to you directly? How does this work?
Shoot me a DM. My DMs are always open. You know, I went on Roxxon the other day, and I'll kind of sign off saying this, like, yes, hit me up in DMs if you ever want to have a conversation about your Bitcoin custody, your Bitcoin journey, if you want help on that. But also, like, I've got takes. I got spicy takes. I don't care.
What's your Twitter again? Q like the letter? Q underscore like the letter.
Q underscore like the letter. And if you don't like my takes, if you don't agree with me, DM me. Let's have a conversation. We've somehow lost that ability in our day and age in our society, and I'm going to bring that back one DM at a time.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Bars. All right, everybody. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. If you guys want to support the show, check out our partners. They're all linked in the video/podcast description. Shout out to our special guest today, Q. Go follow him on X on Q underscore like the letter. Love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.